We're going to start though this part with a tweet from Leon Mann, who's a journalist. He does a lot of work about diversity in football, really good guy. And he actually sent a tweet this week saying the media narrative about footballers is that they've worked hard to make it. The narrative about black footballers is that they're naturally gifted, suggesting they've just been given it and born with it, and why don't they do more with it? And that's one of the really interesting things to come out of this week. Since Raheem's Instagram post last week, it's caused all of us to look at the way that black footballers and white footballers are portrayed, and often we're now seeing differences that perhaps we wouldn't even have picked up on previously. As a mixed race footballer, did you feel you were treated differently?
Look, it's a tricky one to say that I personally felt like I was treated differently. I think the beauty about what Raheem Sterling has done is what he actually put out there on his Instagram with the two posts is it's his opinion, and it's been a backlog of things that have been happening to Raheem over the course of 4 or 5 years, and he's acted professionally along all of that, and then he's just kind of gone, right, there you go, there it is, and now make your own opinions. And what it's actually done, without him probably even knowing, I won't say it's pioneering, but in a way, it's from the hierarchy of all of the editors at every newspaper outlet that is out there. I'm guessing they're thinking twice maybe about articles that have been brought to them that they have to look at, rather than being so blasé about it maybe, because it was quite clear, the post that he put out, and it's quite damning also. From my own point of view, we had certain issues, I think, when we were playing as footballers, whether it was, whether you was a black person, a white person, whatever you were. When it came to the media talking or saying bad things about you, you didn't have that platform to go back or to say anything back or to defend yourself. So you kind of went one or two ways, and some people would do an article, of their own and try and defend themselves. Sometimes they didn't come out that well and it didn't really work, or you'd just not talk to the media at all. And that would definitely go against you. And we had scenarios like that at Newcastle on numerous occasions where we were called like the Bling Brigade, myself, Kieran Dyer, Titus Bramble, Shola, Carl Court. And that's kind of the tag they gave us, because we wore jewellery and earrings and chains and stuff like that. So we kind of went the other way and was like, well, we'd finish games and they'd ask to talk to us and we just wouldn't talk to them. And then eventually they just kept writing, You
wouldn't talk to them, why? Because you felt you were being misrepresented?
Well, they don't know who I am, for starters, and they're just they're writing things about me that wasn't me at all. And I just felt like at that particular point, I didn't have a platform for me to be able to get my words across as clear as I wanted to. Because even Raheem, to an extent, if he'd have sat down and done an interview and voiced those opinions, it might not have come across that well. But because he was able just to kind of show people and allow them to make their own assumptions as to what it was, it came across so poignant and clear, which was perfect.
There would be a lot of rich footballers when you were at Newcastle.
Yeah.
And you would have hung out with a lot of them, some black, some white. This talk of the Bling Boys, was that specifically a group of black players? Or not?
I think Bellows might have been involved as well within
So no, then?
Well, we were all friends. Yeah. All of us were friends. And no, I don't think it was just black players in particular. The majority probably were black or mixed race players, but it definitely just wasn't all black players, no.
So it was more that you felt misrepresented as a footballer rather than as a mixed race footballer?
I just didn't, it never sat comfortable with me that people can make an assumption as to kind of who I am as a person when they don't know me anyway, and then write articles about me in the press as to, he is this or he is that, or he's got an attitude, or he is, he is part of this Bling Brigade. It was like, well, it felt very much like there was an agenda at times, and then maybe I didn't handle it as well with them because I wasn't as mature as I probably am now to be able to go and sit down and talk to one of the journalists and go, hang on a minute, let's have a conversation and sort this out. So I kind of just went the other way and said, I'd come out of games like today and they'd be like, oh, Jermaine, can we talk to me? I'd just be like, just get out of my way and just go home. And that's because I was upset at that particular time as to their handling of the way that they would write things about me during my time there.
And I suppose the interesting thing about that era is you didn't have the outlet that Raheem has now, social media. And one of the big positives, and there are some negatives about social media, we'll talk about them in a minute, but perhaps the alleged racist abuse at Chelsea from a week ago wouldn't have been picked up on like it was unless it was caught on our cameras and immediately tweeted, retweeted, discussed and talked about. So social media is giving all of you as players, both of you included, a voice that you just didn't have.
Yeah, it's massive.
it's massive. It's a different, it's a different world we live in now. And just to go on, touch on Jermaine's point, when I used to join up with England, we used to have to do a press conference, and everyone joined up and they were like, oh, please not me, please not me. It was like going into hell, going into a press conference. You knew that they were going to write things that you didn't really say or twist it in a certain way. You knew you didn't have any comeback because you couldn't go onto Twitter or any form of social media back then. So you're beholden to a pack of people that will guide your image or guide whatever in the way that they want to. So they'll portray me as whatever I want, and Jermaine, and so they're almost making characters of every single person, and you've got no. So then half the players would go and befriend one or two journalists, give them a bit of information. They would always write nice things about them, and it was so underhand and just horrible. But nowadays, it's all in the open. We don't need the press anymore, or footballers don't need the press anymore, in the written press, let's say, because they can portray who they are on their own streams. A newspaper will sell 20,000 copies now. Well, Raheem Sterling, I don't know, probably got millions and millions and millions in the push of one button. So, it's a very different world. But I can tell you, 10 years ago, it was horrific. You were basically, they decided the agenda for you.
I think as well, if you've gone through a career and you're breaking records and you're playing at the highest level, I think the press sometimes think they can give you a little bit more stick, in terms of writing about you. For me, it was generally about my weight. Though I was breaking records, the press, record money at Arsenal, West Ham, Wimbledon, and all of a sudden some players can glide through a career without even getting any headlines. But I think when you're high profile, and it gives them that reason to write more bad things about you. Now, I've been called things about where I'm from. A sheep. What's coming next. Is that abuse? It's water off a duck's to me, but it's water off a duck's back to me. But what I would say is, I think the people that racially abuse people, I think they're uneducated, they're ignorant, and they're thick. That's how I see them. They're thick, because when you do all these campaigns, kick racism out, they don't take any notice of that. Doesn't matter.
Well, we have to find a way then, don't we, to make them take notice of it. That's the problem. But they can't just because you.
And it's not everybody, by the way. It's not everybody. Yeah. There's a minority. We're not talking about every football fan here that goes to football. There's a, would you say, a minority, or is it getting worse? Well,
it is getting worse, because the stats from Kick It Out have been very clear to say that discrimination is on the rise. You can see here, look, so these are the Kick It Out report from 2017-2018, so last season. Abuse overall up 11%, racism up 22%, homophobia up 9%, disability up 107%. Now, of course, part of this is that people are finding an outlet or reporting these things more than ever before. But that doesn't mean that disability abuse isn't happening, because it clearly is. And whether it's a rise of it being reported or a rise of it happening, something now has to be done to sort this out, because we can all sit here and we can have this great conversation about the fact that it was unacceptable what happened to Raheem, it was unacceptable what happened in the Europa League game in midweek, any aggressive chanting is unacceptable, and we can sort of go, great, done our job, had our conversation on Premier League tonight.
I think you've got.
That's not enough, though.
I think you've got to ask the supporters who are witnessing this from the stands, the genuine, innocent supporters who are not racially abusing anybody, who are there with their son just to watch the game, to enjoy supporting their team on that particular day. If they see somebody that is shouting derogatory comments and inflammatory words, then they have got to go to the authorities and report people around them. Yeah. Now, it's brave. It's brave, because all of a sudden they might go for a pint with that guy, and they think, oh, I can't throw my mate under a bus, I can't stitch my mate up. But different mentalities, different mentalities. So you're almost asking the innocent supporters, they've got to step up, and they've got to point fingers at the people who are abusing from the stands.
And that takes bravery.
Of course.
But the stats show that if it's reported and you remain anonymous, a conviction just drops way down. People are going to have to really genuinely make a stand, and
you can't blame people for wanting to remain anonymous as well. From my point of view, it needs to be a level of education from, even with it, starting within schools, because my worry is, the people that have been caught recently, with the alleged racist abuse, have they got sons? Have they got granddaughters? Have they, who are the people that are around them? And does this happen in the household? Is this something that happens in the house and nobody even flinches? And then all of a sudden you've got this next generation coming through that think it's acceptable to go and do that. So, I think there just needs to be, whether it's kick it out or show racism the red card, who have been there for a period of time, doing it is what they do. There needs to be a level of education going into schools and educating, even kids at that level, and giving them an understanding of their responsibilities, whether it's walking down the street or whether it's, coming to a football match. And then eventually, I think later on down the line, that's how you will get it out. But, I think this, at a certain age, that ignorance is deep within, and all it will do is lay dormant for a period of time because they don't want to get caught.
And as good as show racism the red card or kick it out are they doing enough? Because if it is on the rise, discrimination, then surely whatever's being done now is good, but simply not good enough. And we all of us have to look at how we can move this further forwards.
I think the players, whenever there is a campaign, all the players get behind it. In general, all the clubs get behind it. They have all the pictures. They wear the T-shirts for the warm-up.
But that's not stopping it necessarily, though, is it?
There needs to be really firm action as a footballer to the fans. That's why you wear it in the warm-up, so fans see that. And
then they ignore it, though.
Message.
Then it gets ignored by a large section. So is the answer banning orders, lifetime bans, shaming people, naming people?
It is bans. It's a 2-year ban or a 12-month ban because you're taking their pride and joy away from them. If they're caught,
should be a lifetime ban.
Do you think so? A lifetime ban? Okay, lifetime ban then. But all I'm saying is that's their pride and joy, going to the football at the weekend. If they're not going to behave properly and they're not going to show, a conduct that says you've got to respect the racism campaign, then, as you say, you want to ban them for life, then that's up to the authorities.
It's worse in football stadiums as well, isn't it? That pack mentality. It's but nobody. I'd be astonished if you're walking down the street and anyone ever said to you. But if I'm walking down the stadium and there's a group of fans, you're just fair game, aren't you? In a way, well, you shouldn't be. But because you're a group of...
You feel like you are.
Well, you are.
It's just one person in that group.
So we're going to carry on this conversation. We'll pick it up exactly here, whether footballers and ex-footballers are fair game, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes. Take a quick break. Stay where you are.